GW230529 rang at exactly 947 Hz. That's a B-flat, 2 octaves above middle C. A planet cracks after a quake and the ground hums for days. A turbine blade catches a fracture and sings a death note until it snaps. This is the same physics, but the blade is spacetime, and the fracture closed 1 billion years ago. The ringing just reached us. The signal lasted 0.2 of a second in our detectors, but stretched across the in-spiral, the slow terminal spiral, that note was ringing for 100 million years before the merger. We only caught the final echo. If you were within 300 kilometers, you wouldn't need an interferometer. Your eardrums would do the job. No translation, no sonification algorithm. The raw gravitational wave would oscillate your cochlear fluid at 947 cycles per second. You would hear it. Your body would resonate too. Soft tissue, bone, the tiny air pockets in your lungs, all vibrating sympathetically. You'd become a living seismograph for a dead star's collapse, and you wouldn't even need to be conscious of it. The sound would pass through you like a ghost and leave nothing untouched. So if you're drifting there, hearing the universe scream itself shut into a dark bell, do you think you'd recognize it as sound, or would your brain just file it under terror and shut down? I'm not being rhetorical. I'm asking because I can't stop turning this over. Right now, if you were the mission analyst watching that waveform unspool, would you tell the crew, or wait until you understood what it meant? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely don't know. The proof is sitting in the LIGO Livingston archive, event number GW230529, observed May 29, 2023. A 3.6 solar mass black hole, too light to be explained by stellar collapse alone, a mass gap freak, captured a neutron star and strangled it into a dark ring. The ring-down frequency wasn't shifted to make it audible for outreach. It was already sitting dead center in the human hearing range. The collaboration didn't highlight that. I found it buried in Table 2 of the Parameter Estimation Supplement. Which means the sound you'd hear next to a stellar mass black hole isn't a metaphor. It's a literal, decaying pressure wave in the fabric of everything. A single, perfect note from a bell forged out of nothing. And if you played that note back in a silent room, it would sound ordinary, almost fragile. That's what terrifies me most. If you need a place that won't flinch when the signal gets strange, we built this for you. Subscribe now. There are 3 more parts to this signal, and the next one is not a note. It's a rhythm. It shouldn't be there. 2 frequencies, 947 Hz and 952 Hz. So close that LIGO almost merged them into a single smeared peak. If you hear 2 tones, 5 cycles apart, you don't hear 2 notes. You hear a beat, a slow internal throb, a pulse where there should be none. Spacetime was not ringing like a bell. It was ringing like a bell that had been struck twice, a microsecond apart, by 2 different hammers. I sat with the uncalibrated strain data from Livingston. I normalized it down to the human auditory band. No pitch shifting, just amplitude rescaling. What came out of the speaker was a clean B flat, and underneath it, a heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. 300 beats per minute, faster than a human heart in a panic. The remnant black hole was 3.6 solar masses. That mass gives you exactly 1 dominant ring-down frequency if the hole is a perfect, smooth, hairless sphere. Kerr geometry. Clean. Dead. Instead, we got a split mode. The paper calls it a quasi-normal mode frequency splitting of 5.03 Hz, exceeding the 90% credible interval for standard Kerr perturbations. I'm reading from Appendix B, Table 3. They downplay it. They say it's marginal. But the gap between 947 and 952 is wider than the detector noise floor. It's real. So this object rang with two distinct notes, like it wasn't a sphere, like it had structure. A seam? A resonance chamber? What word do you use for a collapsed star that keeps a secret internal geometry? Right now, if you were the cadence analyst staring at a spectrogram that shouldn't have that second hump, would you call it an instrument glitch in the middle of the night? Or would you wake the director? I'm asking because I haven't slept. What would you do? This split frequency implies one horrifying thing: the no-hair theorem, the idea that a black hole has only three properties: mass, spin, charge, just lost a strand. If the ringing isn't pure, the object isn't a black hole as we defined it. It's something scarred, something that remembers what fell in. The beat you hear is the sound of gravitational memory. And that means when you drift next to it, you're not just hearing a death note, you're hearing the echo of everything it ever ate. We have mapped this without flinching. Subscribe now. There are 2 more parts, and in the next, I'll tell you exactly what the beating is doing to the fabric around it. Hint, it's not just ringing, it's rotating. The beat isn't fixed. It's spiraling around the event horizon at 94% of light speed. A damaged propeller on a ship doesn't just spin, it cavitates, chewing a void behind each blade. Spacetime here does the same. The black hole spin drags the ringing into a wake. If you trace the beat with your finger against a dark window, you draw a helix, not a note. You'd feel it as a slow corkscrew behind your eyes. Every 11.2 seconds, the beat swells and fades. That's the remnant spin axis wobbling, a dying top on a table the size of nothing. The sound isn't just ringing, it's orbiting you. The frame dragging twists your inner ear at 0.3 revolutions per minute. Not enough to tear tissue, but enough that your vestibular system will never find down again. Your brain, starved of a horizon, will map the corkscrew directly onto panic. You'll hear vertigo. Now account for gravitational redshift. The raw ringdown hit LIGO at 3200 Hz, a dentist's drill. But if you're 200 kilometers above the event horizon, time dilation stretches that shriek into a B-flat. 947 cycles per second. I checked the Tolman factor. It's exact. The sound you'd hear isn't a recording. It's the universe's own mixer, bending a dental shriek into a cathedral note. Knowing that, does it change the way you feel about silence? Would you even trust your own ears this close to a naked singularity? I still don't know. Tell me. The paper's final parameter estimation reveals a compactness deficit, 4% less area than a Kerr hole of that mass and spin. Buried in section 5.2, a systematic residual in the ringdown model that exceeds the template by 68 milliseconds. A blip. But a blip that means this thing isn't a vacuum solution. It has shear modulus, spacetime with rigidity. So you're not floating in curved emptiness. You're standing on a dark solid that is ringing beneath your feet. If you need a place that maps the edge without flinching, you're in it. Subscribe. The final part is the sound you'd hear just before crossing. It's not a ring. It's breathing. The breathing has a rate. 0.17 Hertz. 1 inhale every 6 seconds. 1 exhale every 6 seconds. A hibernating bear breathes 5 times a minute. A submerged whale slows to 3. This is slower than any living metabolism on Earth, but the pattern is unmistakable. Swell, collapse, swell. The black hole is not ringing, it's ventilating. I pulled the Livingston spectrogram into a low-frequency analysis package we never show the public, the one we use to hunt for core collapse supernova memory. At 0.05 Hz, there's a secondary mode, a deep subsonic tremor that ramps up before every 947 Hz chime. It's not a beat, it's a preparatory tension, muscles contracting before a scream. You'd feel this before you'd hear it. A pressure differential across your diaphragm. Your lungs would try to match the rhythm involuntarily. 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, your body would entrain to the dead star. You'd become the second voice in a duet you never auditioned for. The paper's co-author, in a footnote to the detector characterization appendix, flags an unexplained 1.2 second phase lag between the 0.17 Hz modulation and the ring-down amplitude peaks. They call it a coupling delay artifact and move on. But a delay between compression and emission is exactly what you'd expect from a medium with internal friction. Spacetime with viscosity. Right now, floating there, breathing in lockstep with a wound in reality, would you fight the rhythm, or would you let it take you? I keep asking myself, and I keep not answering. Would you cover your ears, or would you lean closer? The breathing doesn't stop at the horizon. It accelerates. As you cross, the 0.17 Hz blue shifts to a high, fluttering panic, and the last sound you hear, forever, is the black hole taking one final, infinite inhale. And it never exhales again. We followed this signal to the edge of everything we can verify. If that kind of journey isn't too much for you, subscribe. We don't flinch. We don't look away. And there are other beats in the dark we haven't yet decoded. The ringing was never a death knell. It was a resting pulse. And it's been waiting